Have you ever noticed that even after you finally understand something important about yourself, you still aren't quite sure what to do with that understanding? This is the part of healing that doesn't always get talked about, especially after a long-term relationship ending. You may finally notice a pattern. You understand why certain situations feel so heavy, or why a particular relationship dynamic keeps triggering the same response in you. And for a moment, that clarity feels relieving. But relief doesn't automatically tell you what to do with the uncovered information about yourself or where to go next. So after investing a substantial amount of time into processing what happened, discovering lessons, learning to understand yourself on a deeper level, you may still find yourself asking, "What now?" But then come the quieter questions like, what does this all mean? How can I apply what I learned about myself moving forward? Because understanding yourself more intimately and more honestly is not the same thing as knowing what that new awareness is steering you towards. And I think that's where a lot of healing becomes not just about the deeper personal insights. It becomes about the conclusion you draw from all the observations, which then establishes the direction it takes you next. As an engineer, I spent years learning that the inspection process is never the finish line. In engineering terms, you don't inspect a structure just to admire the information. You observe and inspect so you can interpret what the information actually means. Only then should you draw conclusions, which then lead into decision making. That part matters. Think about that for a moment. A structure can be inspected. Its behavior under current conditions can be understood more accurately. But if the conclusions don't lead to the right form of action or plan moving forward, then nothing about the structure's situation will change in a meaningful way intended for future sustainment. And then the inspection becomes gathered information that simply gets filed away. The same is true for you. You can learn a great deal about why you feel the way you feel. You can begin to recognize what the current season's been asking of you. But if that understanding never changes the decisions you make, then it stays in your mind instead of moving into your life. And maybe that's the part that deserves more attention. Because if you spent years becoming aware, thoughtful, and observant about what you feel, awareness alone doesn't rebuild your life. Direction does. And I wonder if one of the biggest shifts in healing happens right here. Not when you finally understand everything, but when you begin asking what all the uncovered information about yourself and your experience can teach you about intentionally building your next chapter. Because once you see yourself more clearly, you are no longer only dealing with the past. You are standing at the edge of a decision, and that decision matters more than the insight itself. Here's what I mean. You could interpret a season of self-protection as proof that you can't trust yourself or anyone else for that matter. Or you can interpret that same exact season as evidence that you've simply learned to move forward through life intentionally and more honestly. Same experience, but different interpretations will lead you towards decisions that steer you in a different direction moving forward in life. A painful season may show you what's been draining you. A difficult relationship may reveal what you've been tolerating. A season of grief may uncover how much of yourself you've quietly hid from the world. And these discoveries are valuable, but they were never the destination. They're information, and information exists to guide direction. Eventually, your healing journey reaches a point where the question is no longer, "What happened to me?" And it's not even what are my experiences trying to teach me. The question then becomes, what am I going to do with what I've learned? That's where healing begins moving beyond awareness and into shaping your decisions and the direction your life takes. This doesn't happen all at once. It's not dramatic. It's often something quiet, like the conversation you finally decide to have, the boundary you finally choose to set, or the pattern you choose to let go of. Those decisions may look small, but every decision becomes a pattern. Patterns become direction, and direction over time becomes the life you build. That's why I don't think healing ends with understanding yourself more honestly. I think that's where something even more important begins. Because insight without decision eventually becomes just another form of waiting. And maybe that's why this matters so much after a long-term relationship ending. Because that kind of season can leave you with a lot of insight and not much clarity about where to go next. You could know what hurt in the past, what changed, and what no longer fits. But knowing those things is only the beginning. The deeper question is what you will do with what you know. Will you keep making the same choices from the same interpretations? Will you keep organizing your life around what hurt you most? Or will you let what you now understand begin shaping something different? That's the quiet point where direction starts forming. Not in one dramatic leap, not in a perfect plan, just in the next decision, and then the next. You don't have to know your entire future before taking the next healthy step. You don't need a full roadmap before you're allowed to move. Sometimes clarity is simply recognizing which direction is healthier than the one you've been walking, and then taking one step, then another. Because your future doesn't change the moment you discover something true about yourself. It begins changing the moment your decisions start reflecting what you've discovered. That's where understanding becomes transformation, not through one dramatic breakthrough, but through quiet, repeated choices that slowly become the new architecture of your life. So the question I want to leave you with today isn't what's wrong with me, and not even what are my experiences and self-awareness trying to show me. Maybe the deeper question is this: now that I understand myself more honestly, what decision is that understanding asking me to make? And what direction is it inviting me to walk in? Because inspection reveals what's true. Interpretation gives that truth its meaning. But it's the decision growing out of that meaning that quietly begins shaping the direction in life you start moving towards. If today's message resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, or share this video with someone who may need this reminder today. Thank you for being here on Iryna's Avenue, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.